Last Sunday we began the next edition of the Alpha course, this time in Polish language. And during our first meeting, the opening video asked a simple but very serious question. What makes you happy? And the answers, those who were asked on the street, were honest and striking. The first man said nothing, only laughed. Another woman questioned, maybe money. Another young woman said, music, ice cream and cheese. A young man answered, good sleep makes me happy. Others said, friends, going to clubs, dogs, alcohol. One said, women pretty much, clothes. Someone said, just life in general. Another admitted honestly, I am still figuring it out. And one said, I just live in the moment, I don't think about it. Today Jesus speaks a word that there is very strong. Unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And listening to all these answers, a question stayed with me. Is this really all there is to life? I remember only other one, when Jesus speaks in such absolute terms, when he says, unless you become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. We all want to go to heaven, and we usually associate Jesus with unconditional love revealed most fully on the cross. And yet, he places here the condition of surpassing the righteousness of Pharisees. How are we supposed to do it? It's something extraordinary, we need to do it. Notice that this gospel is the continuation of the Sermon on the Mount of Beatitudes. Just as Moses once went up Mount Sinai to receive the commandments, Jesus went up the Mount of Beatitudes. But there is a crucial difference. Moses went up the mountain to receive the law, and only then to bring it down to the people. Jesus does not go up the mountain to receive anything. He places himself in the role of the lawgiver. Jesus is not simply passing on God's commandments. He's establishing them, giving the new meaning to them. And for the Jews of the time, this was shocking. The Torah, the first book of the Old Testament, was the highest moral authority, the final standard. And yet Jesus repeats almost like a refrain, you have heard that it was said, but I say to you. He shows himself not only as the lawgiver, but as the ultimate point of reference, the final standard. That's why when I ask myself, am I a good person? The question is not whether I look decent compared to others. Well, compared to the most people, I am doing okay. That's not the standard. The only real comparison is Jesus himself. When I place my life next to him, I begin to see clearly how much I live by his law and how much I don't. So when we examine our conscience, when we think about sin, about commandments, it all comes back to one fundamental issue: my relationship with Jesus. Everything depends on whether he is truly my highest authority. Because I will choose a way of life, a set of values, a moral path, only to the degree that Jesus is my ultimate point of reference. And every time I fall, every time I realize I can't keep the law, I am too weak, I feel powerless, I have to go back and ask the real question: When did I stop caring for my closeness with Jesus? Why has he become less important lately? Why is prayer disappearing from my life? Because it always looks the same way. When my relationship with Christ weakens, everything else starts to fall apart. I begin to fall in other areas, in other commandments. I don't know a marriage that collapsed when both spouses were really and truly living close to Jesus. I don't know a priest who left the priesthood while remaining faithful to personal prayer. Life begins to unravel only after relationship with Christ unravels first. This is the foundation. This is the first point. If I want to stand firm in every other area of life, I must first fight for closeness with Jesus. Our righteousness begins to grow when, besides closeness to Jesus, we also take care of perseverance in our decisions. In the first reading, Sirach says, "If you choose, you can keep the commandments." In other words, if I am not keeping a commandment, it is not because I don't understand it. It's because at some level I don't want to. And here we see an important difference. One thing is making a decision, another thing is staying faithful to that decision, to stay with what is good, to persevere, to have determination. Sometimes motivation comes. Sometimes we even have the strength to decide. But the real problem is perseverance, lasting in that choice. The classic example, New Year's resolutions, or even Lenten resolutions, often better motivated because they feel more spiritual and more religious. Other times, someone decides to lose weight, starts a diet, keeps it for a while, longer or shorter, and then ends up right back where they started. I am not a better example myself. I would really like to stop mindlessly scrolling through short videos, especially in the evening, and to this day, I still haven't built a good habit. I manage a few days, and then I fall back. Someone else wants to quit alcohol. Someone wants to step away from social media. Someone wants to change a pattern that has been hurting them for years. And the real question is this: where do we find the determination, not only to decide, but to persevere? Jesus shows us the way. And here we come to the third point, the most important. For Jesus, everything comes down to the heart. He is not interested only in external behavior. He wants us to look honestly at what lives deep inside us. Because a deep and lasting decision is possible only when my whole heart is directed toward a real value, toward true good. And here is a deeper level. Who owns my heart? And where my heart truly is? Not at the heart of the Valentine's Day emotions, but my deepest self, my inner center, the place where decisions are made. We like to say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We often say, I meant well, but it turned out the same as always. What really matters is to whom and to what my heart truly belongs. And today Jesus touches three realities, gives us three pillars of the heart. Do not kill, do not commit adultery, and do not lie. People quickly reach for easy excuses. I haven't killed anyone. I am not sleeping around. I don't cheat or steal. So I am fine. But Jesus places on the same level murder and anger, adultery and lust, false testimony, and twisting words and meanings. Jesus says, "You have heard that whoever kills breaks the commandments." That's obvious. But then he goes further. Even the one who is angry with his brother is already accountable. In other words, Jesus reveals a dangerous inconsistency in the human heart. Anger, resentment, hatred, these don't stay neutral. Sooner or later, they look for an outlet in action. Because you will never truly harm another person if your heart genuinely loves them. But when the heart is filled with anger, bitterness, or hatred, sooner or later we begin to kill the other person. And we know very well that killing doesn't only mean taking physical life. You can kill someone with words, attitudes, that steal hope, dignity, and worth. You can kill by simply crossing someone out of your life. And we live in an age of slander and online hatred. In virtual comments sections, we dump our excess anger. Idiot, fake, loser. It feels like a quick release, a clever comeback, but it often grows into deliberate harm. We have grown used to easy lies and empty promises. We have gotten comfortable with an internet culture built on throwing mud at one another, because otherwise nobody clicks. Once someone said about their pastor, he was arrogant and despotic. When asked what she meant, she replied, "He wasn't on my side." Then Jesus speaks about adultery. Of course, committing adultery is a sin. That seems obvious. But Jesus says, even looking at a woman with lust means adultery has already happened in the heart. The first reaction, especially for many men, is, "Come on, Jesus, this commandment is impossible to keep." But again, Jesus says, "Look at your heart." Because you can remain physically faithful to your spouse, to your state of life, you may never betray them in action, never go to bed with someone else, but still be unfaithful in your heart. You can be loyal in the body and far away in heart. And in that way, still betray the other person. It doesn't always have to be another woman or another man. You can betray your spouse with your work, with a hobby, with an addiction, with a passion that consumes your heart. Your spouse then feels less important, less seen, because something else receives more of your time, your attention, your energy. And this is the most fundamental level of all. Where is my heart? Am I present with the other person in love? Or is my heart fully given elsewhere? Also, we live in a culture of innocent flirting, crude jokes, tolerance of pornography, casual hookups, and dating just for fun. All of this has destroyed more than one genuine love and pushed many people into cynicism. And Jesus is calling us back, not to perfection, but to truth of heart. Jesus is interested in our heart, not only in the actions we finally commit or avoid. Very often we go to confession, we confess only actions, what I did or what I didn't, the very end of the road. And seen this way, most of us come out looking pretty good. Most people don't steal. Most don't commit adultery. It happens more on a screen. But when we go deeper, when we ask, where is my heart? It may turn out that I am not so righteous after all. Because when I place myself next to Jesus, when I measure my life by his standard, I begin to see clearly that I am not really living the Sermon on the Mount. Brothers and sisters, So let today's Word of God not be just a thunderbolt from heaven that pierces us. Let it be above all an invitation. Invitation to ask, is Jesus truly my highest authority? Is he the final standard by which I measure my life? Is he the one I compare myself to? Because only then does life become about something more, something that truly leads to the kingdom, something that truly surpasses the righteousness of the scribes. And may this gospel invite us to concrete decisions at the level of the heart, because each of us probably needs to make at least one real decision today, a decision to change something, a decision to bring our heart closer to Jesus.